For me, the Sega Master System remains one of the best consoles for platformers. Over the many years, I've enjoyed playing many great games from my childhood, which includes Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, Cool Spot, Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap, the 8-bit Sonic iterations naturally, and of course a slew of Disney and Sega games which not only captivated me with their graphical prowess and playability, but also stayed true to their source material, ensuring that the characters and their worlds would be best represented and work within the confines of the story Sega had lovingly crafted for them. One such game that has been on my mind lately was the Lucky Dime Caper, starring Donald Duck. Released in 1991, this was just one of many games that Sega developed in-house for its systems, and remains a golden period for Sega, as with the Disney license, everything they seemed to touch at that time turned to gold, and they created some stellar titles which I feel have stood the test of time to this day. For me, the Lucky Dime Caper in particular is quirky, colourful, challenging, and sits right up there as a must-play title. I am deeply nostalgic for old games, and this one has a personal connection with my childhood. I can remember my dad buying this, as well as Castle of Illusion and Mortal Kombat for me and my brothers one Saturday afternoon. When we got home, we set up the Master System, and try as I might, I could never beat this game, and found it to be very difficult as a little Lucas. Now I could beat the first 3 stages, but alas, my child brain couldn't work out how to beat the further 3 levels. I do recall that one day my younger brother managed to get to the final stage, Magica Dispel's Castle, but we could never work out how to beat her, and it's such a shame we fell at the final furlong, as I would have loved to see this game beaten back then. Still, having grown up and reconnected with this game, I've learned to love it and believe it's a real gem, and maybe it's hindsight talking, but I actually love its challenging levels and applaud its structure, and I'm not just saying this because I finally beat it. It's a fun slice of platforming action pie that doesn't hold your hand too much and is actually quite short in hindsight, but its vibrant levels and enemies are some of the best on offer in the Master System's rich library of games. Our story begins with Donald and his nephews Huey, Dewey and Louie visiting Uncle Scrooge. Scrooge is regaling them about his immense fortune and says that his accumulation of so much wealth was due in part to his one lucky dime. He then hands the nephews a dime each and imparts some wise words about the value of hard work, and this in turn will determine how lucky their dimes will be. Eavesdropping outside of the window, however, is the evil Magica Dispel, who overhears the whole conversation, and as Donald and his nephews say goodbye to Scrooge, her minions swoop down and duck-nap the nephews and their lucky dimes too. Magica then grabs Scrooge's dime and declares that with it she will become even richer than he, and promptly disappears. I guess maybe she heard that in the future Microsoft stock is going to soar or something and she wants in on the action. Scrooge is enraged and, being very money-minded, just wants his lucky dime back. Donald, however, is more focused on sensibly getting his nephews back. Scrooge then says he will give Donald a reward if he can get his lucky dime back. This spurs our feathered friend to rescue his nephews and retrieve Scrooge's dime too. And so begins the Lucky Dime Caper for the Sega Master System. The game starts off with a map screen which allows you to select the first 3 stages in any order you wish, Mega Man style. I felt this was a nice touch, as a natural order of the stages, the Northern Woods, the Great American Forest and the Andes Mountains increase in difficulty, so you could play the hardest stage out of the 3 and get it ticked off first, or if like me you like doing things in order, you can tackle them that way too. You can also do the same for the next 3 sets of stages, Egypt, the South Pole and the Tropical Isles. The graphics in the Lucky Dime Caper are absolutely gorgeous, bright, colourful, and each stage looks distinct with a lot of care being taken. Donald's sprite is well animated, detailed, and his walk cycle is smooth as he strides through each stage. He also reacts to his environment differently on every level. In the tropics in Egypt he sweats, in the South Pole he shivers from the cold, and this was a nice attention to detail by Sega. The enemies too are also impressive, with Sega making sure not to repeat the same baddies on each level, as to give the player a feeling of distinction between each one. The woods have bees, they've got nests falling from the trees, mushrooms and beavers throwing twigs to prevent Donald from advancing. The forest changes things up with projectile throwing birds, deadly fish and jumping snakes. The Andes Mountains have crazy shaman throwing crooked sticks and jumping erratically, possessed pots, and of course more birds throwing what I can only describe as frozen green jelly, or maybe green fruit pastels. I can't be sure. But then the game does a complete 180 and gives Donald 2 quick time events on a slope, with rocks to avoid and more birds, and a temple which is full of nasty traps, darts and a field of spikes that have to be navigated whilst avoiding tricky blocks who seemingly have a mind of their own. The bosses in the Lucky Dime Caper are a personal highlight for me, and I liked how the first 2 were dangerous animals to fit their respective environments. The woods has this hungry bear who seems to be jacked up on glucose and fructose, as he has a broken beehive on his head full of honey and he races back and forth towards you. The forest throws in this lion who must have been taking lessons from Raiden, because he can torpedo across the screen, and if Donald is even a pixel near him when the lion is performing this action, then I'm sorry buddy, but you're going to take a hit. The third stage features some possessed statues that have come to life, throwing boulders, and you can jump on the boulders and use their momentum to jump on the statues' heads, or you can play it safe and use a weapon to defeat them. Defeat each boss in the first 3 stages and you will have rescued a nephew. Once all 3 have been returned, Donald moves on to the next portion of the adventure, where he must retrieve the nephew's dimes. Just like the previous 3 stages, Egypt, the South Pole and the Tropical Isles can also be tackled in any order, and this is where the game increases in not only quality but also challenge, as it's no longer just a simple trek from A to B. Stage hazards such as falling lava, long arrows, falling scorpions, mummified ducks, and even pits that require Donald to use the gusts of winds to propel him across. All this must be navigated. Also, Donald in both Egypt and the tropics must now obtain a key to progress any further. Out of these 3 stages, the Tropical Isles is the most challenging, as it features lava spewing stone faces that appear randomly as Donald tries to ascend or descend. Nasty scalding drips also come from the ceiling in certain sections, and they are used to destroy ice blocks, where Donald must move out of their way and try and survive until the route below is revealed. Also, there are a few sections towards the end of the stage where Donald must do the same thing, only this time there are blocks of ice that must be navigated. Our hero is in a room full of lava which causes the same drips from the ceiling to appear. Donald's jumps must be timed, as these ice blocks disappear and reappear, and he must carefully work out the pattern and get across to the other side. Suffice to say, I was very impressed with this difficulty increase, and it really showed that Sega didn't want to repeat themselves, offering something very different, as with the first 3 stages, there are 3 bosses who this time are Magica's crows who appeared at the start of the game. Each one has a fairly simple pattern to work out, and they can be cheesed really easily once you have a lay of the land. Once you destroy all 3 and get those dimes back, it's onto the final stage, Magica Dispel's Castle, which is the toughest stage of all. It features Castlevania style spike traps, ghouls, ghosts, skeletons and portraits falling off the wall, multiple routes, possessed cutlery, and of course you do get to battle the evil Magica Dispel once you get to her, which I will talk about a little later. You move Donald left and right through each stage. Like the majority of Sega Disney titles, he controls just fine and is smooth and responsive. He can also duck as well as jump. Now he always starts each level with a weapon, his default being the hammer, which he can use to destroy enemies, but he can also nab a frisbee as well. Donald can defeat enemies by jumping on them. For every 2 enemies he defeats, he gains a different power up. Now stars will appear more commonly when you defeat 2 enemies. Now once you collect 4 of these, they will allow Donald to wield his weapon faster, giving him more of an edge over the baddies. Should he then collect a 5th star, then he gains a brief window of invincibility, allowing him to breeze through the section and destroy some enemies, and this can also get him out of a jam. Now normally, should Donald take a hit, he loses the current weapon that he has. If he takes another hit, he then loses a life. Defeating enemies will allow him to pick up the hammer or frisbee again though. Donald can also pick up 1-ups, which you can abuse by having enemies respawn on the same screen and defeat them until a 1-up appears. Or you can use this handy dandy trick I found in Egypt in one of its treasure rooms. There are several treasure chests here. Now defeating them yields a power up. You can then hit the other chests to change the fallen power up to a weapon, a 1-up or a star. You can abuse this trick as many times as you like, but be careful as there's a nasty rogue chest in there that will try to attack you. You also get a limited amount of time in the room before you are kicked out, but you can re-enter the room as many times as you like to abuse this trick. Although the lives counter shows you can only have 9 lives, you can exceed this amount and have as many as you require. So if you're new to the Lucky Dime Caper, I highly recommend doing this as it will allow you to get used to many tricky sections in the game. You can also pick up large and small gems, but all these do will add to your high score. The gameplay is excellent, although I will say that Donald's hitbox and the hit detection can be a little suspect at times, as if you grace an enemy by just 1 pixel, you take a hit. You can take them on up close, but I always found myself getting caught out this way, especially on the Andes Mountains, where the enemy patterns are bonkers. Still, this can be remedied with the frisbee, which allows you to take out enemies at a distance, and this takes away the stress of close combat, but it's nice to have the option though. Also, this game does have infinite continues and also additionally a time limit. Now I'm scratching my head as to why the time limit is even included, because unless you really dawdle, you get bags of time, and I never really died from this mechanic. Also, when you enter a building or new section, the timer resets to full, so its inclusion is kind of a mystery to me. Another inclusion is a very brief swimming section in the Great American Forest. It's an especially nice one, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's over in about 15 seconds and never repeated anywhere else in the game. I'm guessing maybe Sega were planning on including a longer section, but maybe they ran out of memory. Still, this small underwater section does nothing to diminish the overall game and does complement the stage well. Now, the overall difficulty of the game, as mentioned previously, increases gradually with the first 3 levels, and then introduces 3 more levels which are a lot harder and require some timed reflexes and a bit of puzzling to solve, as well as more crazy enemies who will stop at nothing to stop our plucky hero at every turn. If I had to critique the Lucky Dime Caper, I will say that Magica De Spell's castle is overkill when it comes to its many traps. Now, I got destroyed time and time again with this crazy lift spike trap towards the end that requires a lot of memorization and a lot of luck to get by. Magica really wants Donald dead, and I can't understand why. I can't really say that anything in this game really prepares you for what's in store in the castle. However, this issue is mitigated by the extra life exploit I mentioned earlier, and as long as you collect more than enough, they will allow you to learn the timing of the traps, and you will respawn at the same checkpoint you reached, so there is at least that. Now, onto Magica De Spell herself. If you manage to get through the many traps and hardships in the castle, you finally get a one-on-one confrontation with her. However, it's not really clear how to beat her. Now, up until this point, you've been taught that bosses can be whacked with weapons or bopped on the head. Neither of these have any effect on Magica, and this was why my brother could never beat her when we were kids. She uses her magic to make lightning and bombs fall from the ceiling. She seems to be absolutely invulnerable, and there doesn't seem to be any clear way to defeating her, except, spoiler alert, there is a lone crystal ball on a large table. Now you have to stomp on this or use your weapon to destroy it. This is the only way to stop Magica and break her magic spell, allowing you to grab the dime and leave her sobbing. Who knew, right? Although even with this knowledge in mind, I still got caught out with her attacks as I was trying to quickly smash the darn thing. Still, with persistence, I finally won the day and returned to Uncle Scrooge triumphant to get my reward, which turned out to be a, you guessed it, lucky dime. Mind you, given how lucky it made Magica, I don't think Donald should underestimate the power that Scrooge's dimes have. All in all, the Lucky Dime Caper was wonderful. It was a decent ending to what had been a very enjoyable but challenging experience. Now, this game is very short, as I mentioned, and can be beaten in about an hour or so if you know what you're doing. However, newcomers will get their money's worth from the many traps and puzzles that need to be overcome later in the game. Although many tout Castle of Illusion to be the best platform game on the Sega Master System, I would say that the Lucky Dime Caper is right up there as one of the best also. If you would have asked me when I was a kid, my answer would have been very different. But now, having spent enough time with the game and with the benefit of hindsight, I can see what Sega were trying to do with the game and its structure. Like Castle of Illusion, it has an original story, faithful animation and Disney-esque style graphics, and I can't believe I've gone this long without mentioning the music, which contains some of the best tunes I've ever heard on the system, with Egypt being my absolute favourite. But honestly, every track you hear on the game is an earworm and can easily be recalled. You can easily remember which level you were on when you heard each track. They're very distinct and they're absolutely awesome. Now, if you played the Lucky Dime Caper as a child and got burned by the Egypt or Tropics levels and maybe it put you off, I implore you to give it another shot. Whilst it can be a little too rough on you later on, these challenges can indeed be overcome. And again, Magica dispelled castle layout traps, and her confrontation can be a bit suspect and lead to many thrown controller pads. However, it's still a fun time to be had with the Lucky Dime Caper, and playing it again for this video was like a comfort blanket for me. It brought back a lot of fond childhood memories and certainly made me appreciate how lucky I was to have been around in the golden age of video games in the 90s. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this review. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another retro gaming video. Tatty bye!